Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Matters That Matter. I'm Simran and I'm in a conversation with my mentor, Susie Singh. So, in part one of How to Build Self Esteem, we spoke about what are some of the reasons that cause a low self esteem and what are some of the symptoms that show up in people with a low self esteem. So, today, Susie, I want to ask you, are there any specific steps that we can take towards building a healthy self esteem?
So there are 7 steps um, to build our own value or to build our own esteem. And like I mentioned in the last video, the part 1 of building self-esteem, the first step is about creating your own value or amplifying your value by accomplishing challenging tasks.
Hmm.
So step 1 is to identify a task that you want to address or to do, and to make sure that the task at hand is of medium difficulty level. If it is too simple, you're not going to give credit to yourself and you're not going to value yourself for doing it. If it is too
Hmm.
tough, you're going to give up because you're going to get overwhelmed by it because your confidence is low. So
Yeah.
always start your efforts of building self-esteem with a medium difficulty challenge or a
Hmm.
task, and be very specific about it. Now, the
Hmm.
thing with people who have a problem with self-esteem is that very often they prefer to daydream and they prefer to live in the world of fantasy because the real world is so hard for them. And I've
Hmm.
referred to why that is so because of the experiences that they've encountered in their childhood in the previous
Hmm.
video. It is important for them to be able to do a reality check and not just drift in their ideas or think about, I'd like to do this and this would be so wonderful, but to get very specific and narrow it down to something in the immediate time and say, okay, right now or today or this week, I would like to work with this. So
Hmm.
let's say that somebody has never baked before and wants to start baking.
Hmm.
To be able to say that I'd like to bake something this week
Yeah.
is is going to just be a daydream, a fantasy that they will
Hmm.
think about, they will ruminate about it, but they'll probably not act on it.
Hmm.
And then they will run themselves down because they wanted to do something and they weren't able to do it. And that is again
Hmm.
going to keep the self-esteem exactly where it is at base level. But
Yeah.
if they were to turn around and be specific and say, this week, I want to bake a chocolate cake with a
Hmm.
ganache topping.
Yeah.
Now you can see that they're very specific, and that can lead to the next step, or at
Hmm.
least drive them to the next step because they know they want to bake a chocolate cake.
Yeah.
And, they're not saying, oh, but anybody can bake a chocolate cake. They've been specific to make it a difficulty level which is higher, saying, I want to do a ganache topping. So now they're going to have to learn how to do the ganache topping.
Hmm.
And if they are able to accomplish this and bake this cake that they want to, then they are going to feel, wow, I did it. And that
Yeah.
I did it feeling is going to promote their own self-esteem. So
Hmm.
step 1, be extremely specific, select a task in the near future with an
Yeah.
immediate call to action in your own mind.
Yeah.
Step 2, what stops you from doing it? Because the minute you do that, you're going to
Yeah.
encounter all the forces of your past that are going to give you a million reasons about why you
Hmm.
can't bake. So at that point, you need to sit down and list your thoughts out. What stops me? You will encounter a lot of, I can't do this, I can't bake for nuts, I have never cooked in my life, and all of those can't do thoughts that are
Hmm.
arising from the past are going to
Hmm.
come there. When
Right.
those arise, you need to tell yourself, you need to make a declaration to your own mind, and it needs to be firm. Even though I believe
Hmm.
that I can't bake this cake, I am choosing to do this because I understand that it may not be the best cake ever the first time around, but with practice,
Yeah.
I'm going to get better.
Right.
Now, you have made a firm declaration of intent to your own mind,
Hmm.
and you have acknowledged all of the anxieties that may be coming, or all of the limiting beliefs or the barriers that you've set up for yourself from the past. You've acknowledged them.
Hmm.
There is going to be the other aspect, which may be, your mind, because it doesn't want you to do this, it's fearful about you going into new pastures, is going to also bring up resource issues. Oh, but I don't have an oven. How can I bake? So
Hmm.
excuses will start.
Yeah.
So one part is the can't do it. The second
Hmm.
part will be the excuses why you can't do it. And there'll be
Right.
logical excuses. At
Hmm.
that point in time, you need to address that excuse and tell yourself, oh, but there are enough people who are sort of, baking in a pressure cooker, they're baking in a kadai, they're doing all sorts of creative things. So I can do it too, even
Right.
if I don't have those resources. So
Hmm.
here is when you will do the jugaad. You
Hmm.
do the creative solution, the creative problem solving to the barrier that is arising in your mind.
Yeah.
Step three, believe and build yourself.
Hmm.
Now, the minute there is this feeling of can't do it arising in you,
Hmm.
it is very important. You need the mental emotional energy to convince yourself that you can do this effort. Because
Yes.
very often this is a step where people just drop it and say, nahi, yaar, nahi ho paega. I cannot do this.
Hmm.
So believe and build means that you have to look back at another experience in your life when you encountered something for the very first time and you
Hmm.
succeeded at it.
Yeah.
So maybe you can remind yourself. I remember when I went to class 4 and I had to recite a poem in class, and I had never recited before anyone before, but I practiced for a few days and I did a brilliant recitation that day.
Yeah.
You draw your inspiration from that past experience
Right.
and you build yourself up.
Hmm.
Normally, what happens at this time is people with low self esteem are going to be breaking themselves down here, and their mental thoughts are going to be telling them a whole laundry list will be there about why they can't do this, or why they're going to
Yeah.
fail at this, or why they're just not good enough, or why this is a bad idea to start with.
Right.
So, step three, believe and build yourself.
Hmm.
Step four is do the research, get the clarifications that are required.
Hmm.
Now, if you're baking a chocolate cake with a ganache topping,
Hmm.
obviously you need a recipe. So do your research, select a good recipe based on ease, based on the ingredients available to you, on the substitute ingredients that you require, on the kind of ratings it has got, on the kind of feedback and comments it has received. Now you've done your research and you
Hmm.
feel a little more confident because you've built
Hmm.
your confidence. I know how to do this. Even though this is
Yeah.
new, I know how to do this.
Yeah.
I remember an interesting example here. There was this gentleman who worked for a very prestigious company,
Hmm.
and he was very good at his job, but he was terrified of confrontation because he'd been bullied a lot in school.
Hmm.
So every time that his boss assigned a task to him or gave him a presentation to do, he'd listen, he'd take the brief, he'd go back, and he'd spend hours doing the presentation, come back, and the boss would not be happy. And
Hmm.
he just quietly listened to the boss, go back and do the second iteration and the third iteration. And with each iteration and his silence, the boss is getting more impatient and getting angrier with him and beginning to judge him.
Yeah.
And after the fourth presentation, the boss really loses it and says, I don't think you have it in you. And
Hmm.
this boy goes away feeling wrecked, of course, because his belief about himself has been thus proved, and his
Yeah.
self-esteem has just taken a nosedive
Hmm.
southwards.
Yeah.
And my question to him was, did you at any point clarify? Did you fully
Hmm.
understand that you understood his brief? And did you do that step of clarification? And he said, no, I didn't, because I was so terrified about him sort of just getting angry at me for asking
Hmm.
questions or whatever else.
Yeah.
Now, and he said, look, anyway, with every iteration I was going back, I was hoping I'd be able to clarify things, not realizing that he was investing so much of himself.
Hmm.
And, it would have been perfectly fine for him to verify with the boss and say, sir, is this what you have in mind? And I think we can do it in these three ways. Which one would you prefer, or which one? So
Yeah.
seek his feedback, seek his input, do
Hmm.
his research, do the clarification. So it's very important for us that when we are doing that, we put in this energy at this step, because this
Yeah.
is the step which will determine whether we will really succeed in our effort.
Yeah.
Step 5 is be disciplined, be tenacious
Mm.
about your effort and keep at it.
Right.
Because it's likely that you're going to drop out at one of these steps now. From
Yeah.
the third step onwards, the possibility of dropout, and you must identify for yourself, where do you generally have a tendency to drop out? So keep at it. Things may look difficult. You may start the baking process and realize that, oh, I'm being clumsy in the kitchen and I don't really know how to mix the ingredients and I don't have a mixer. I'm hand mixing everything. It doesn't matter. Just keep at it. With time and with practice, you are going to get better at it.
Yeah.
And nobody becomes a pastry chef with the first effort, right? It's going to be years of trying, and each
Yeah.
time your attempt is going to get better. So just keep at it. 6th point is ask for support, because
Mm.
it's likely that you may be running into some hurdles, into some roadblocks, some
Mm.
stumbling issues that you're not really sure why this is happening. Why does my cake always become flat?
Yeah.
Is the temperature too high? Why did it get burned? Where did I make the error?
Mm.
Very important. Or
Mm.
if you want to take that help before you have started baking, then you may like to call up a friend who's good at this and say, look, I'm starting this. This is what I've done. Is there any other? Do
Mm.
you have a special tip for me? Do you think that
Mm.
I should look out for something? I
Yeah.
really want to do this and I want to do it well.
Mm.
So ask for the support.
Yeah.
And 7th and the last step is find the courage to go out and invite feedback.
Mm.
Because let's not forget, when we have low self-esteem, we are terrified about being criticized, right?
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
have to we have to change that, reframe the what people are telling us, move the needle from criticism to feedback. And when we invite it ourselves, we do it because we are determined to improve our efforts. We
Mm.
tell ourselves, I am inviting feedback as an inspiration to do a better job the next time round.
Yeah.
So if this executive had actually gone with that attitude and asked his boss, okay, you don't like
Mm.
this particular second draft that I'm presenting you. Is it this that's a problem? Do you think it's the manner? It's the visual presentation? Do you think it's the content? Do you think my research or data is weak somewhere? Where is it that you think this lacks? Do you think there's no central idea in the whole presentation? Where is it
Yeah.
lacking? Not
Right.
where am I lacking, but
Mm.
where is the presentation lacking? This distinction is very important. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean that you can't do it. It
Mm.
just means that you need the advice or the feedback to help you improve the effort that you have put in, or the
Right.
learning that you are putting into this whole process. So 7 steps, very important to follow each one of these through in a committed fashion, because each time that we get a breakthrough, each time that we move our experience from can't do to can do, each time we move it from I am not worthy of receiving the support or the guidance to, oh my God, he actually took the trouble to explain this to me. You are
Yeah.
going to be taking your self-esteem a notch higher and higher and higher. And we
Right.
must remember that eventually the world sees us how we
Mm.
see ourselves. So
Mm.
it's very important that we take these steps to help us build our own faith in our ability to do things, in our
Mm.
ability to receive the attention of others, our
Mm.
ability to receive help from others, so that the joint result, the combined result of all of these things is my sense of having achieved something, having gone past the I can't do to I can do it now. And
Right.
every I can do it is going to make our own self-esteem better.
Absolutely. So, Susie, I have a question. A lot of times, even if we are following these 7 steps, we might, stop at step 3 and start again from step 1, or we might see through the task we have set for ourselves, and then once we've seen through it, um, we can be such a perfectionist that if we have not done a good enough job according to our standards, we can run ourselves down, we can shame ourselves, and so that entire process of having done the task also gets wasted because we are back to square one. So how can we be kinder to ourselves, and how can we sort of step out of this perfectionism, allow ourselves to not be perfect?
So I think two things there. The first one is at step 2, what stops me? If I
Mm,
find that I am the kind of person who has a very strong negative mental attitude towards myself, or my inner dialogue towards myself is extremely critical,
yeah,
then that's the first distinction I need to receive, that it's not that the world is criticizing me, which is what I really fear. It is
yeah,
me who is
it's me.
criticizing
Yeah.
myself, right?
Mm, mm,
So we have to be in the awareness that I am not going to criticize myself. And when I do, I'm going to stop and I'm going to apologize for myself, to myself. And I am going to remember to believe in me,
mm,
which is the step 3, which
mm,
is this is the first time I'm doing something. I'm going to
mm,
build myself up. I
mm,
may not be perfect the first time round, but I know that if I keep practicing, so there has to be a lot of self motivating inner talk that goes into believing in ourselves. That step
mm.
3 is a really relevant and important one.
Yeah,
And the second thing is that perfectionism is also a way of running yourself down.
yeah.
We tend to admire perfection, but I think
Mm,
a 90% perfection is a good formula to follow. As
mm,
long as something is 90% perfect, you must let it go because you must always keep the room for improvement.
right.
And we must understand that mastery is acquired through self improvement. Mastery is acquired by constantly iterating on my last effort.
Right.
So we are never going to reach that degree of perfect satisfaction with ourselves, and we will not know how good it is till it goes out into the world, until we invite the feedback, till we exchange and talk about it and share it with people. And
Mm,
all of those things actually will help build our self esteem, because we
right.
also tend to become very isolationist when we are not
Yeah.
confident about
Couldn't.
ourselves, or
Yeah.
when we don't value ourselves enough. The sheer
Mm,
act of going out and realizing and recognizing very pleasantly that what I thought was an inadequate effort on my part is
mm.
actually people love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Mm.
that experience can suddenly sort of shake you out of your bad dreams, so to say, because you've been
Yeah.
having that dream for the longest time in your life, believing that you were so terrible because you've been running yourself down.
Right. And I sometimes feel that if you have that very strong belief about yourself that you're not good enough, or some negative belief, you also kind of look for it in the world so that it sort of reaffirms it for yourself that,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm right.
you expect it to happen.
You expect it to happen. Yeah.
Whereas what you should actually be, if you are genuinely in the pursuit of enhancing your self esteem, what you should be looking for is there are enough people out there who appreciate who I am and what I can do. And can I selectively focus my attention on that first? Because I know that that is the magic formula that is actually going to help me to sustain my effort and keep taking these little building blocks to
Hmm.
building my self esteem.
Right. So I think those 7 steps were really, really helpful for anybody who's looking for a way to build their self-esteem. And it is always important to remember that it is a practice and it is a slow process. And it is very important to be kind to yourself through that process. If you like this video and find it helpful, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Thank you for watching, and we will see you soon.